Dre Baldwin, DreAllDay.com. This article video is titled "The Financial Realities of Overseas Basketball." So the question that I'm often asked, the question that a lot of players have when they are thinking about or they're trying to, they want to play overseas is, how much money can I make? How much money did somebody make playing basketball overseas? We know that this is the $1 million question, or the $1,000 question, or the $100 question about pro basketball that every prospective player, fan, friend, family member, everybody else wants to know, right? Most people won't come out and say it all the time, but you can tell it when they're thinking it, right? So I'm not going to bury the lead. Let's get it right out in the open. There is no pay scale for overseas basketball. Overseas basketball does not have a players association. Therefore, there's no union. That's the Players Association. There's no salary cap. There's no max, and there's no salary floor. There's no minimum. There's no average, because to get an average, you would need all the inputs. And overseas salaries are not required to be made public, unlike the NBA, where you can look up everybody's contract. Overseas, you can't look up everybody's contract. Any average that you hear somebody try to put out there that the average people make overseas is this or this, that's only of what that person has heard of. It is not of everybody that's playing. So that number is not to be trusted. So whatever number somebody says the average is for overseas ball, that's not actually the average, because they don't have all the information. You can't state an average unless you have all the info. Nobody has all the info, so it's impossible to give you an average. Now that we got that out the way, I know this is not as juicy an answer as you were looking for. Well, overseas basketball is just like that. It can be a game of shadows in many ways, meaning you're not going to have all the information all the time. That's just the way that the game works. Everything's not on Google. There's no clear, quote, straight answer you can get out about every single thing that's going on in overseas basketball. And if you want to play overseas, this is what you got to deal with. This is what you're stepping into. And if you're not ready to step into that, then maybe overseas basketball is just not for you. But I'm telling you the real of what it is. You need to know this and accept it as part of the game that you want to get into. If you're not a player rather, but you are curious and you just want to know and get some ballpark figures about what's going on overseas, understand that a basketball player is just as comfortable telling you about how much they make as you would be telling people how much you make at your job. So when's the last time you told the whole world how much money you were making? You probably don't. So don't think that it's okay to ask a pro athlete how much money they're making if you're not comfortable telling other people how much money you make. I mean, they're professionals just like you. They're a man or a woman just like you, and everybody don't want other people to know how much money they got or how much money they're making or whatever. People like you don't like everybody knowing about their money, right? And I would guess that the average NBA player, if they had a choice, they would rather everybody not know how much money they were making either, but they don't have a say in the matter. So this is one clear advantage that many overseas players have over the NBA counterparts, is everybody don't have to know how much they got. All that being said, here are some things that any player should know about making money overseas. Number one, here are the things that a player can do to gauge your own value in the pro basketball marketplace. So the surest thing you can do is speak to a player who already has a deal, a player who's already signed and playing overseas, a player who wouldn't mind sharing you how much money they're making, and you can gauge your own value in comparison to who that player is. So some things to consider when making such a comparison between you and another player, if you have someone you can ask. You might not. Age, professional playing resume. The younger you are, usually, I wouldn't even say that. Sometimes the younger you are, sometimes it's just how much work you put in. What's your resume? What have you done up to this point? Because that can help teams know that you can play. And that goes in the second point, professional playing resume. If you played in a country for several years or the same team for multiple years, that team will be more willing to invest in you because they know what they're getting out of you when you play. Your playing pedigree. In other words, where'd you play in college, which is a rough gauge of your talent level. D1, D2, D3 is a rough way that teams gauge how good you might actually be and your potential ceiling. The power of your representation. In other words, how much juice does your agent have, if you even have an agent? The leverage that you have. In other words, how many teams other than the team you're talking to is currently vying for your services? If nobody else is going for your services and it's not an urgent need for the team that you're talking to sign you, then you don't have much leverage. Leverage means you have other options. If you don't have other options, then you have no leverage. So outside of this, being able to talk to another player, next thing you can do is talk to pro basketball agents. An agent knows the basketball market, and they'll be honest with you about what they can make happen for you and or what you could command in the open market. Because agents also decide whether or not to take you on as a client based on the same factors that I gave you a minute ago: your resume, your age, your pedigree, your background, your leverage, what potential you have. However, I want you to understand that you personally, you the player, not the agent, is the person who's ultimately responsible for what you are worth in the pro basketball world. So if you can play, you can play. And if you can't play, you can't play. All right, no amount of agent juice can change the fact that you're good or that you're not good. All right, so don't think that the agent is responsible for getting your contract, or that the agent's the one who's going to get you on. The agent's the one who can't. If you can play, an opportunity is going to happen. If you can't play, the opportunity is not going to happen. That's the game. So what can you do to improve your earning potential in overseas basketball? I would assume that any person in any profession wants to make more money in the future than you're making when you start, right? I would assume that you agree with that. So you can accomplish this in basketball the same way you would in any other job. Here's what you do. Number one, you got to perform. The better you do your job, the more money you can command in the open market. Number two, get help. In other words, find an agent or a manager, somebody who has the juice that you don't have, or maybe that you both have, that you can leverage into higher salaries. So if you have somebody on your side who has the power and the relationships to help get your name to the right people at the right time, that can help you make more money, combined with the fact that you can perform. All right, it's not to replace that your performance, is to combine with your performance. Number three, be a professional. When you're on a team, that means be on time for practices, be on time for team functions. Stay out of and away from any off-court situations, quote unquote. Be a likable teammate. Be appreciated by the hometown fans through your play, through your energy, through your spirit. Be a positive person. These things do matter come negotiating time. You might think they don't matter, but they do matter, and they can hurt you a lot more often than they help you. Number four, win games. More than what you see in the NBA, overseas basketball is more about winning than it is about stats or about how good you look or your highlights when it comes to your personal perceived value. Many overseas basketball clubs operate not as money-making ventures like they do in the United States. So the owners of teams overseas, a lot of times they own a team as a passion project. They want to give back to their hometown or to their city or to their country. They're not doing it because they're trying to make a buck off of owning the team like they do in the NBA. In the NBA, you see teams getting rid of players so they can save money on salary and tax and all that stuff. Overseas teams don't do that because they're not doing it to make money. They got other things they're doing to make money, and they do that just to give back to their communities, or just because they're passionate about helping that team out. Maybe they grew up with the team or something like that. So owners overseas, often there'll be owners who are losing money or just breaking even running the team, doing it out of pride for their town or their team. Meaning this: winning matters more than the financial bottom line. That's what you need to understand. If you put up great stats but your team isn't winning, you're not going to be on the team for long. Because I've seen players get released even though they were averaging 25, 30 points in a game. That's absolute fact. And the last thing you can do, perform. I'm saying it again. You are an American player. If you're an American, you're playing in a foreign country. You can't hide on the court. You cannot hide off the court. If your performance is trash, everybody can see that your performance is trash. No amount of niceness or even team success can mask the uncomfortable fact that you're not performing at a high level. Hopefully, everything that I'm saying here helps you a bit when it comes to your money overseas. And if you're like I was when I began my career, when I was age 23, you may be willing to take on pretty much any opportunity to get your feet in the door, but then later on, money starts to matter a little bit more. So I suggest you go to dreallday.com/athletes with an S on the end, athletes, and read all my articles about overseas basketball, and go to balloverseas.com and you can get my book, The Overseas Basketball Blueprint. That is the guidebook to playing basketball overseas. You can get it for free. All you do is tell me where to ship it, take care of the shipping and handling, and I'll send you that book worldwide, wherever you are. If you're serious about your career, you should have already read that book. If you didn't know about it, now you know, go get it. Work on your game. Dre all day.